in the end it means I blah 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 blah. The world is very sexy. It's part of my collapse. What did you think of the song?
Blah, 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 blah. I like the beat and stuff.
That's about it.
I just feel like, is this a fill-in-the-blank song?
Yeah.
Every day is different?
Yeah.
And you might say different things?
Yeah.
That's all I got.
That's good. I didn't even read that deeply into it. I think that's good. For those of you who don't know, I was just showing my mother, what is it called? A gorilla song, which I think I've been holding her like hostage to witness a lot of media growing up. A lot of times she didn't like it, but she's always a trooper. And so, welcome to the podcast. I don't know the name yet. One of my friends said that I should call this the LOL podcast.
LOL? Because of laughing out loud?
Because my name, but L.
Oh.
LOL.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what do you think? 1 to 10.
I think it worked. 1 to 10?
Yeah.
I'll give it an 8.
Okay, the LOL podcast with your host, El the Devil. And so basically the goal of this podcast is I just want to interview some people that I think are interesting, mostly people in my family and that I'm close to. And my mom is basically top 2 to 3 most interesting people that I've ever met. The other one is my dad. And I just got lucky that my parents are interesting people. I lucked out, dude. I kind of lucked out. And yeah, that's about it. So I have some questions for her. But, you know, we're just kind of gonna go off the script here and there. So, would you like to start off by introducing yourself?
My name is Wendy. I'm Elle's mom. I'm a mother of 3 daughters. And I've survived that. So, I'm a testament to that. It's not easy. And that's pretty much it. Just a regular person, right?
Okay, so jumping right into this then. My first question I have is, you know, tell me a little bit. How old are you? Did you say how old you were? How old are you?
I think I'm 46.
I don't even know how old she is. I feel like you've been 43 for the last 10 years of my life.
Yeah, I was born in 78, so I think I'm 46. I just turned 46.
She just turned 46. She doesn't really age. A lot of people think she's my sister a lot of the times. And so, yeah. Tell me a little bit about where you were born, how you grew up. What was that like? I know a little bit. I know she's from Brooklyn.
Yeah, so I was born in the Bronx and lived there for a few years. Then moved to Brooklyn, Flatbush, Cortelyou Road, Avenue D.
Okay, represent.
07112.
Is that the zip code?
Yeah.
Okay.
Until middle of 8th grade, and then we moved to Jersey and to a little 1 square mile town, and been here kind of ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my childhood was Brooklyn and then Jersey.
And so you grew up with some siblings.
Yeah.
You're the oldest.
I'm the
3.
oldest of 3. I have 2 younger brothers.
Okay. What's your nationality? What was it like growing up in a Dominican household?
A lot of eating. Yeah, and I wasn't a big eater. So in my house, it's like my parents are big eaters. My mom could throw down like a dude. She'd probably out-eat a lot of men. And then my brothers were big eaters. So I was the only one in the house that wasn't a big eater. So I had those issues where it was like, sit down and eat your food and you can't get up until you do. And I get that, but Dominicans are very with the eating and to make sure you're nourished.
And if not, it's like a problem.
Yeah, it's like they think you're gonna wither away. It's very cultural.
Yeah,
it's very cultural.
I have a friend from jiu-jitsu, and her mom is down, and her mom and the mom's best friend were talking about how she's got an issue because she's not as hungry as she should be. But it's like how define as hungry as you should be. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, and I think it's
they think you're gonna like shrivel up and die or something.
Yeah, I think it's different. I think everyone has a different appetite, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Just like some people drink more water than others because they're thirstier. It's just
Like,
I think you take in what your body asks for.
Very true.
You shouldn't be giving it more or less than that.
That's good. I like that. So, what was it like growing up in Brooklyn? I have heard some stories which we're not going to get into like some crazy shit, but from what I know and remember, Grandma and Grandpa, which we're going to get them both on the podcast in the near future, but they owned like a little bodega, right? And
Store, yeah.
and like a video store,
Yeah.
right? Which wouldn't even survive in today's climate. I don't remember the last time I seen a VHS tape in the flesh.
Yeah. It was fun. I remember that my dad used to put on, like, let's say Z100 or something. I don't even know if that exists anymore, but it was a radio station that was more like mainstream pop songs. And it would cross genres.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there might be a rap song or there might be a pop song.
Yeah.
So I remember being in the store and, you know, my dad didn't have the merengue and bachata. He had on, like top 100 things. Charts. I remember stealing bags of potato chips from my dad's store, and my dad would fight with me and my brothers and be like, "Stop eating the chips, they're for the customers."
Like, I am the customer, old man.
Yeah, it was fun. I think it was super fun with the video store too. We got to see a lot of the movies right away, and
this was in Brooklyn that they owned it?
Yeah, it was. They were both in Brooklyn.
I have a question. If we went one day, would you be able to tell me the exact spot?
The location, yeah, both places, yeah.
We have to make a trip.
Yeah, we could, and then we can eat pizza and stuff. Where I ate pizza as a child. Yeah, it was fun, and my dad, I remember, he would call everybody boss.
Mm-hmm.
He would make the best sandwiches. Because, you know, you walk into the deli, they can make you a sandwich.
Yeah.
Some delis in New York have grills.
Yeah, and Grandpa doesn't cook often. The most time I've seen Grandpa cook, you want to know when he's cooked for me? Is when Grandma's been... I think there was one time she went to DR. Like,
yeah, or surgery.
She went somewhere.
Yeah,
yes.
He's a good cook.
For surgery, that was the big one, and he stepped his...
Yeah, he knows how to cook.
He stepped his game the fuck up. I was like, damn, Grandpa, you throw it down.
Yeah, he knows how to cook.
It was just shocking because I was so used to Grandma cooking growing up. But when Grandma was going through surgery, he threw the fuck down. There's no nice way to say it.
Yeah, throughout my childhood, whenever he needed to cook, he would, no problem. Mm-hmm. And I think he would enjoy it, too. Yeah. So it was fun.
Yeah, that's sweet.
For sure.
Yeah, I remember him enjoying it, too, like, in that small period. Like, and also, like, feeding people. Yeah. Like, I think he, liked that.
Yeah. And, you know, my dad was the man of the house as a child, because his dad died very young, and my dad was very young, so... In Dominican Republic at that time, sort of like he became the man of the house. He had to go out and get a job, even though he was under the age of 10. So, yeah, I think that he's always had that to cook or to do whatever he needed to do, you know, as a man of the house. It didn't matter what it was.
Yeah. So, we're going to get a little controversial. Because at the end of the day, like, life is interesting. Our life is interesting. People who want to watch this, whatever, it's our truth. Is it okay if we talk a little bit about how your dad, my grandpa, is not technically like our biological grandpa and biological dad?
Okay.
Can we, is that okay if we just, this is for life and history. And can I just say, all my life, even my mom has said, you need to watch what you post on the internet. And it's true. And with the frontal lobe development, I've gotten better. But my thing, even till this day, is that there's not a lot of secrets with me. Because when I die, which, although hopefully it's a long life, I don't know if that's tomorrow. I don't want there to be any secrets. I want people to overall know what kind of person I was. And so, the whole point of this podcast is just to kind of document what we have and what we are. Because I find it very interesting. So, back to that. Would you care to talk a little bit about what chisme I'm even bringing up right now? Grandpa, the grandpa that we love and know, he's not the biological grandfather.
Yeah, but he's my dad.
He is. And he's my grandpa.
He's always been my dad. As far back as I can remember, he's been my dad. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't like to refer to him as my stepfather. Mm-mm. He's my dad.
I get that.
And The only people that we really talk about him not being my biological father is just
in historical reference.
Yeah. But when I grew up, and it's hard to say that out loud, but I just felt like I didn't belong in my home. And so that always made me feel like if I don't belong here with the people that I am with, then where do I belong? That is not to say that you can't have those feelings with biological parents or biological siblings. Mm-hmm. You can still feel like you don't belong. Yeah, if you're so different than them, or mm-hmm. if you don't understand each other on a regular level, mm-hmm. you can feel like you don't belong.
You're alienated.
My feelings were justified the day that my mom told me the truth, which is I didn't have the same father that my brothers did, that my dad raised me, but he wasn't my biological father.
Mm-hmm. And so let's talk a little bit about that journey, girl. Let's get into it. So you found that out. What, if you could go back to that moment, what was kind of going through your head? Was there a sense of relief, I knew it, but also oh shit, what the hell? Now where do we go from here?
Not relief, validation. Mm-hmm. Validation to my feelings. That I always felt like I didn't belong. And then it's this is why.
This is the reason you've always felt that way.
I also want to say, it's interesting because the only person I did relate to or that did make me feel remotely like I belonged was my dad. Mm-hmm. So that speaks to him and to his character, and to the way he always loved me and looked out for me and spoiled me. And in my eyes and in my heart, I felt like he favored me over the boys, and that could not be true, but that's how I was made to feel. So if anyone made me feel remotely like I belonged, it was him.
Which is a little ironic, but it's a beautiful thing nonetheless.
Very ironic. And remember, he wasn't home all day. He was working. Mm-hmm. I was home with my mom and my brothers.
Right.
So when he was around, I felt like I belonged. Mm-hmm. When he wasn't around, it was So yeah, when my mom told me, I felt validated. Uh-huh. And I also felt like that's all I really needed.
Okay.
I just needed to know that I'm not going crazy.
Yeah.
But thanks for that. Now I feel better.
Okay.
And her one question was, do you see your dad any differently? My answer was 100,000% no. Mm-hmm. Actually, I love him and respect him more now.
Even more. Yeah.
And this person who was my father biologically, he hasn't looked for me. I don't know anything about him. So he's irrelevant to me at this time. Mm-hmm. It's sort of what was important to me in that moment was knowing that my feelings came from somewhere real.
Yeah.
And that I could move forward now that I had a piece of information that sort of made me feel more at
Everything
ease.
kind of fell into its right place in that brief moment.
Yeah, I want to say I was 15 or 16.
Okay, cool. Okay, so pretty young. Okay, so you mentioned that, it didn't matter at that point, but moving forward in your life, was there ever a time where your biological father, did matter, where you started to have questions or start to wonder or, want to ask questions or go searching for this person?
So, regarding asking questions, I want to say no. I want to say I didn't have any questions from my mom when she told me. Uh-huh. She answered my one question.
Yeah.
Am I adopted?
Is that what you actually asked her in that moment?
I've always told her, I'm adopted, right? Just tell me the truth.
Damn, that's fucked up.
And she used to say, why do you say that? And I used to be like, I don't know. I just don't feel like you're my mom.
What the hell?
And maybe that's not my dad, and maybe those are not my brothers.
Holy shit.
Because remember, a sense of belonging, when you're in an environment and you feel like you don't belong, then you don't feel attached to the people that you are in a home with.
Yeah.
So that's what made me feel like I was adopted.
Right.
What else? Why else wouldn't I feel like I belonged?
Right. What else?
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was my only question.
Mm-hmm.
When she said to me, "Do you want to know anything?" No. "Do you want to know his name?" No.
And when
it was all irrelevant to me.
When, if you ever got to a point?
When I had my first child.
Okay.
I think that as a teenager, I handled that truth very well. I feel like maybe some, we're all different. Some people may get existential about it.
Yeah, get a little nutty.
I think some people may have an identity crisis. As a teenager, you might be like, "I hate you, Mom."
Yeah. Really just lose it.
But I think that I was always more mature than other children my age, and that's for many different reasons. What in my maturity, what was relevant was to know the truth, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never missing a father.
Yeah.
And my father's role was so important, and he was always so good to me.
Mm-hmm.
That I didn't have to go looking for I was never missing anything. Now,
yeah,
when I had my daughter, my first daughter,
that's
I was 18.
Is what how that changed things.
Well, it changed things because I thought to myself, this child is blood of my blood, flesh of my flesh. Like, she has my DNA.
That's heavy.
And I have this man's DNA. And how can this person that I am connected to physically, not emotionally, not in any other way, physically connected to this person, how can they, as my biological parent, know nothing about me and not even care, or to me, not even flinch? Mm-hmm. Because I was never searched for, I was never looked for. Mm-hmm. So to me, when I had my oldest child, it was like this awakening within me. It's like the maternal instinct awakened.
Yeah.
And it just made me feel like, this is my child, and I am somebody else's child, and this person knows nothing about me. And so I did a search.
At some point, I do want to go back to first childbirth, but let's keep talking about this to just get it.
Yeah. So back in the day, it still wasn't the time of computers in that way.
Which we're gonna touch on the future again, and how computers really threw us for a loophole in today's day and age. But until then, it wasn't like that back in the day. Back in the day, they had phone books and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wasn't going to go on a phone book.
No.
There was no computer to Google a name.
And they wasn't even cell phones. There were pagers. That came out in what, the 80s?
The pagers?
Or the 90s already.
I was using pagers in the early 90s.
Early 90s.
Late 80s, early 90s.
I feel like if you had money, you had a pager.
I mean, I was a teenager. I had a pager.
Okay. Dad, you was running these streets.
Well, to a certain level I wasn't, but I was still a teenager, and I had friends. It was safe. And it was a way to communicate with the outside world.
Okay.
And I kind of lived a sheltered life in the way that my mom didn't believe that you let your girls be out here running the streets.
Yeah.
So I did live sheltered in that way, that I wasn't really allowed out much.
Okay, yeah. I've definitely heard you say that.
Yeah.
A couple times growing up, all your friends going out and stuff. And
and I wasn't allowed.
Your friends having to beg you to go out.
But there was on the TV always this commercial for this company called U.S. Search, and I used them. And so this was 1996 or 97.
Okay, because Big sister was born in 96.
Yeah, and they sent me a list in the mail of like all of the people in the United States that matched that name with a similar birth date and lived in the places where I've said they've lived.
Weird.
So I wrote letters. I want to say I wrote one letter and I photocopied it. Just basically saying, I'm looking for this person, this was their name, this was their birth date. They were known to have lived here, here, and here.
Okay.
If this is you, please contact me.
And was this something that got mailed to them?
I mailed it, yes.
Okay.
I want to say...
Sounds like something you would put on a milk carton, like on some crazy shit.
Yeah, I want to say that there are so many beautiful people in the world that just reached back out and said, it's not me, but good luck on your search.
That you actually got that?
Yeah. I got many letters back from many different people.
Wait, so this service, you sent this out, like, on the U.S. search website? Or...
So no. So U.S. search, it was like, I think it was like 1-800-US search. So I called them and say, I'm looking for so-and-so.
Okay.
And they're like, all right.
They like
we're
narrow
gonna
it down?
run through our databases and we're going to send you all of the names that match that person.
Oh, wow.
So I got all of those names and addresses. And then I mailed the letters out to these people.
And that's why you photocopied, because you had to send it out multiple times.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out. That's
and of
crazy.
course, my return address was on the envelope.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah, so many. And you know how now on social media...
It's like people responding.
Say nasty things.
Yeah.
And some people will say nice things.
Yeah.
You just never know what response you're going to get. All of the responses were beautiful and sweet. All of them.
People had hearts back then, I think.
Yeah.
People are sociopaths
And also,
now.
at the same time, these people were all within that date of birth range.
So there
were people, yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
More mature people.
Frontal lobes developed.
So long story short, I didn't find him.
Okay.
And I felt that I tried. I was in the middle of raising a baby.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have time to dedicate so much to this search. It was like I tried and it didn't work and I moved on.
Okay.
So, before you ask me, was that it? I'll tell you no.
Mm-hmm. I
gave birth to you. And the feeling came over me again.
Get out.
Of how can I have someone else that's connected to me and they don't know anything about me and I don't know anything about them. I went looking again.
Okay.
Just within 2 years' time, things got so advanced. The 1-800 search people were now using... I can't say exactly, but I want to say it was like the motor vehicle database.
Okay.
A database that they didn't have access to before.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's public record. But with everything they gave me one name and one address. And I sent a letter. Registered, return, received. Meaning they would receive the letter. They would have to sign for it before they even know what was in that letter.
What's going on in there?
And I would get a postcard showing
that
who
they
signed
it. That's like getting a red receipt. And, that's like getting, read the receipt. Whether you get the response or not, girl, you about to find out. But
that's
I read it, bitch.
That's exactly it. And the contents of the letter was basically, I'm looking for this person. If it's you and you don't want anything to do with me, just let me know that and you'll never hear from me again. If you want a relationship, here's my number. Reach out to me. Either way, I need a response because I need to know. If not, I'm going to show up at your doorstep.
Can I just say something? I know this story, but my heart is beating so fucking fast right now. Like, my heart is like, do. Okay, why am I getting emotional? I don't know. This shit is crazy.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Like a movie.
Yeah, so... I was aggressive in the way that I needed an answer. And I was going to get an answer.
Which is justified. So justified.
So
you went 20... How old were you when you had me? 22? 18, 19, 20. You were 20. Holy shit.
Yeah.
You went... Holy shit. You went 20 years with no answer, no contact, no understanding, no knowledge of this person.
Yeah.
And you spent the last 2 years looking. Maybe less than that, because
Yeah.
again, like you said, you were raising a baby, but it was a process that you did start when Nana was born.
Yeah, and the 2 weeks went and I didn't get a response. So I showed up at this person's house.
Did you get a red receipt?
Yeah, I got the postcard.
Okay.
And when I asked my mom, this is the person that signed. Are they related to this person? And she was like, yeah. You found them.
So you took it upon yourself to pull the fuck up.
Yeah, I mean, so back in the day, there were a lot of talk shows on TV. It was like Maury Povich.
Like, you are not the father, like that? You said
Yeah,
Maury.
yeah. Not only like that, but like Ricky Lake.
Okay.
Oprah Winfrey.
Okay,
It was just a lot. It was Phil Donahue. It was like Sally Jesse Raphael, Geraldo. It was like the talk show era.
Okay, yeah.
Where every like mainstream channel network had their talk show.
Yeah, that's like YouTubers today.
Do you know, I would watch Ricky Lake and see these reunions, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah,
And
lose
they're
your fucking mind.
And that's what I was expecting. And it was a complete disappointment in that way. I didn't really have my hopes up. But I wasn't expecting what I got.
Okay,
so I'm going to keep it short.
Okay.
And not go into all of that and just say that my biological father, was in my face. And he knew who I was and I knew who he was. And I got an I don't know. Okay. I got in we would need a DNA test to know. Oh. And so it was disappointing because I went there thinking that I was going to leave with an answer.
But
and I got an I don't know.
Have like the audacity.
And I remember saying to him as I was leaving, if it's I don't know, it's no. And that's it. And I just want the viewers to know that I have this man's face.
And when we talk towards the end of the podcast, because I kind of have a timeline of how things are going to go, the resemblance to that side of the family is uncanny.
It's more so than the people that I'm with every day.
That you grew up with, yeah.
Yeah, so to make a long story short, he showed up at my house, my apartment, about 2 weeks after that, apologized and said, under the circumstances he was in, he couldn't say, even though he knew, and he's like, I know, you're my child, and I'm sorry, and I would like to have a relationship with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we're going to put a pause on that. We're going to go back a little bit. At this point, you already had 2 kids.
I did.
2 little babies.
I did.
And so, I have some simple questions. I'm 2 of one of those 2, and then of later on in the future, 3 babies. So, when you had me, you were 20 years old. And then when you had the big sister, you were 18. It's pretty young to have a kid. But not bad, I don't think.
I mean, technically an adult.
Yeah, and like
I could have fought in a war if I would have wanted to.
She looks like my sibling now, and like we're besties now. So, the fuck, I think I have a specific question. Let's go look at it real quick so that I don't lose my train of thought. Okay. So, where and at one point did you embark on this journey of motherhood? You met my dad. We're not going to talk about him for too long because this is about you and me, but I did get here somehow. And so...
So you want me to tell you how I met your dad?
How you met my father?
So... I can only go by my memory.
Okay.
It was a long time ago.
It's a blur.
Yeah, I mean, it was a teenage brain.
Yeah.
It's not like you're in your 20s or 30s and you meet the love of your life.
Right.
And you remember every detail.
Or it's like a staple, like the memories that we just talked about, which are extreme and vital, you know?
Yeah.
I don't remember shit from high school.
All I could tell you is your dad used to always be around. I want to say mostly on a bicycle. That was his means of transportation.
Does that sound like me on my longboard a little bit?
A little bit. You are your father's child. And I was a high school dropout.
Okay.
And he was also. So we were all in night school.
Wow, okay.
So I don't know if your dad remembers, but I can tell you that we either started talking from me seeing him around town, or we either started talking from being in night school together.
Can I ask you something real quick? Why were you a high school dropout?
Okay. If I must answer, I will. I had certain circumstances growing up that had me in a situation where most days I was depressed.
Okay.
I call it situational depression.
Mm-hmm.
Had I not been in that situation, I wouldn't
Probably
have been depressed.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a hard situation that I was in. And so I had to function every day, and everyday function was difficult for me.
Gotcha.
So I had parents where back in the day, it's like they'll get up at the crack and they'll go to work. So they don't know if you went to school or not.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what time you got home from school. Again, there were no cell phones. There was no tracking.
You couldn't ring up the parent and whatever.
So I was a big cutter of school.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't even like I would go and check in and leave for the day. I just wouldn't go.
Yeah.
And
you weren't even out running these streets. You were probably just home rotting.
Rotting. Watching Maury. Yeah, so every day was a survival for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard. I could only do the bare minimum.
And so that accumulated in loss of attendance, and then eventually
the
full drop.
Yeah, one day they called my mom. Because also, they used to send letters. Like, your kid missed school. I used to intercept those letters before they would get to my mom.
You gangsta.
Yeah, so she really wouldn't know what was going on a lot of the time.
Holy shit.
Until she would know.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so moving on from that, I was curious because I'm sure you've mentioned it to me 8,000 times that you dropped out. Yeah, you have, because I knew about night school, and I knew that even though you had kids, you still finished it. And that was the big thing growing up, was that you were always on the grind. It didn't matter what the circumstances was.
Yeah, so I still graduated the same year that I would have graduated had I finished on time.
Got you.
So I wasn't off track in that way, and I didn't get a GED. I got a diploma.
Okay.
Because that was the program.
Okay.
But yeah, you can ask your dad if he remembers. I surely don't. It was either night school or just
through
from
the
hanging
grapevine.
out. Yeah, like the library course or something.
Okay, yeah. I feel like it's a similar story on his end, but
yeah.
We'll find out by the end of the series. Okay, yeah. So I go through this thing where I forget that she's my mom just because, like, I'm not gonna cry today. We're so fucking compatible. Like, when I tell you that this really is my bestie for life, like, we be shooting the shit. We be hanging out. We spend a lot of time together. When we don't spend time together, I feel like a part of me is missing. And so that's not a bond that a lot of parents have with their children. But because of that, I be forgetting that she's my mother sometimes. Not a good thing. However, I, for that reason, love hearing the stories about motherhood and what it was like for you being a mom and, like, raising us. So what did that pregnancy, that motherhood look like for the first time around with big sister, bestie Nana?
So I think with big sister,
and you were 18 at the time.
I was 18. I just feel like at first,
how did the family take it?
Just fine.
So Hispanic core.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm gonna be a grandma.
And what? Grandma had her first kid when she was like 24, 22, some shit like
25,
that. 25.
maybe.
Okay, cool. When I was 25, I was in my room drinking White Claws and drawing cartoons.
Yeah, there were no extreme reactions. Mm-hmm. It was like, I guess we're all having a baby. That type of thing. Your dad moved in with us. Uh-huh. And, you know, it was different at first. I couldn't connect at first with being a mom. Yeah. I think because I was so young. And also, honestly, I want to say it was just the shock of it. Yeah. The shock of, you know, stupid teenager, like, how can I be pregnant? Like, duh. Duh, girl. It was like, Nana, I didn't start to get bigger till the end. So I was like, am I even pregnant? Mm-hmm. Like, so I was just kind of going through the motions.
And you mentioned being sick all the time.
I was sick every day, every night, all the time. Mm-hmm. For the first like 5 or 6 months. No, I was losing weight rather than gaining weight.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, but I will say I was meant to be a mom. I'm connected to that. I'm connected to, there's many jobs that we have in our lifetime, and I think that I connected most with the role of being a mom.
She's a fucking baby whisperer. You don't want to bring her to your cookout. You don't want to bring her to your family outing, because she will take your baby and she will bond with that.
I love babies. I think that
she will bond with it.
If financially I could have handled it, and if, you know, I had a long time partner and not been divorced and all that, I think I would have had a boatload of children. Mm-hmm. Just because I love kids, mm-hmm. and I think that if you're in a different financial situation, you can be home with them versus you going to work and them going off with a sitter or a daycare or something. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love children, and I just feel that the mother role is very fitting for me and my personality. Mm-hmm. I identify as a nurturer, mm-hmm. and I nurture all people around me. They don't have to be my children. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that motherhood suited me well, mm-hmm. even young. Mm-hmm. And it was a beautiful experience, and I was never one of those people to be like, I didn't get to live my life. Mm-hmm. I didn't get to do anything. Mm-hmm. I lost my childhood. Like, no, I was a mom. Yeah. And it gets lost sometimes, like, people during that era, they'll be like, you remember this movie? You remember this club? And I'm like, no, but because I didn't have time to watch movies, mm-hmm. I was in the house with my kids. Mama Dukes, yeah. Yeah, and also, everyone parents differently. I didn't have, like, movies in the background mm-hmm. that were rated R that my children couldn't see, but I was watching. Yeah. So I was kind of out of the loop for a lot of things, but I don't feel that I missed out.
And for our early ages, too, you were a full-time stay-at-home mom. Right?
Up until you were like 1.
Okay. So let's go back a little bit then. What was it like being pregnant with me? It's okay.
It was definitely more pleasant than Nana, because again, I was sick every day. Yeah. I also was more connected to that pregnancy, because now it's not the, I don't want to call it denial. Yeah, like the shock of it.
The teenage shock of it.
Yeah, I knew that I was pregnant, and I knew what was coming because I had already been there, done that. Mm-hmm. So it was more pleasant and more enjoyable. And I'll never forget the day that they told me that I was having a daughter. Mm-hmm. It made me cry because I never had a sister.
Oh, so you were happy that Nana was having
a sister.
Aww.
Yeah, because it's hard being the oldest with a house with brothers. It's mm-hmm. like, you know, and they're way younger than you. Mm-hmm. One of my brothers, I think, was 4 years younger, and the other one 3 years younger, or 4 and 5 years mm-hmm. younger, and it was always like, yeah, and your like, ugly friends are here to see you. Yeah, so it was just like so a different rowdy level. And
so gross and dirty and weird.
Yeah, and immature. Yeah, but to know that my oldest was going to have a sister, to me,
really
I thought was
tugged on your heartstrings.
such a beautiful thing because I always wanted a sister and never had one.
Yeah. My. How the tables have turned, how the turns have tabled.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like, let me look at this real quick before I go further. What was it like raising a little baby like me? What was I like? What was I like? Because we have a couple stories. We won't go through all of them.
Okay.
But
I'll just say that you were super cute.
Not the answer I was looking for.
To me, you were like a white, almost Asian-looking baby.
Okay. What was your first thought when I was born?
That you were pink and rosy.
And you were like...
And I was like, whose child is this?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm dark-skinned and my ex-husband is very dark-skinned. And you were a white, rosy
and my
baby.
big sister is dark-skinned.
Yeah, so I was like, what is happening? Am I in the Twilight Zone?
Yeah, you're
maybe
like
an episode of Black Mirror. Yeah, but you look just like your dad even when you were little.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just weird.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But my mother is light-skinned. Your grandfather on your dad's side is light-skinned. So two dark people can't have a light-skinned baby. But you were super cute, super emotional.
Yeah.
If that was, you said that was your toy and somebody touched it, get ready for the wrath because you were not having it.
Yeah. That was crazy.
Well, you were just a challenging toddler in the way that I would, spank you on your little hand and you would look at me and be like, it don't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. So your personality was definitely different than your older sibling because she was like a very smooth sailing
And like bubbly.
chill, just a chill baby.
You used to say that her worst thing was that she was like
she was an escape artist, totally.
She could get out of anything that you guys put her in.
from 4 months old.
Crazy.
Yeah, so
Super intelligent.
So you guys were different.
Mm-hmm. I was just overly emotional, you would say.
Yeah, I would say, and you were very dominant in your behavior. Like I felt like you thought your dad belonged to you and he had to do what you said. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, but all kids have different personalities.
Yeah. Would you say that leaked into, me growing up and stuff?
The different personality?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My personality generally, were there things from a baby that you would say kind of like carried on into youngness and then adolescence and then adulthood?
Well, I think that you've always had an emotional side and you still do.
Yeah.
Let me just let the people know it could be a cartoon or a movie. We will be crying.
Yeah.
So in that way, I think you're an emotional being.
Emotionally intense, would you say?
Absolutely.
I love that word, intense. I know I shouldn't. I feel like that's like my toxic trait.
Well, I don't... On my end, it's not toxic.
Yeah.
On the receiving end, it's just like, there are certain things that are emotional. Mm-hmm. And I think that you get that from me.
Yeah. Yeah. Ironically, a lot of the stuff that you said about you as a teenager and as a child, it kind of resonated with me. Yeah. Like saying that, like, you felt like you were a little bit more mature for, like, one reason or another.
Yeah.
I remember a couple weeks ago you telling me that, like, growing up, I was a little bit more, like, advanced or mature from what you could observe from, like, the kids around me and shit.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, so, I think that regardless, we all have different personalities, and you were into the things that you were into from very young, like the anime and...
That used to worry you a little
Japanese
bit, right?
culture. The only thing that worried me was not specifically the stages of... Can I call it obsession?
Yeah, that's what used to worry you. And I don't think, honestly, in my older age, I don't even think that you're wrong for that, because I do see it, and I think it was definitely more extreme when I was younger.
Yeah, and I had to let it ride. It's not like I could tell you, hey, listen, you're not Japanese. You're not going to be Japanese.
My God.
So you need to stop with the obsession of the Japanese culture.
Oh my God.
Does that make sense?
Oh my God, she said, bitch, stop being a weeaboo the fuck up. Oh,
So,
shit.
I had to, whatever stage...
And what was it that I was obsessed with? And
you know, it's kind of a blur. All I could say is, I remember, I don't know how you say it the right way, Naruto or Naruto.
Naruto.
But there was that obsession.
You wanted the real legitimate for you say.
The obsession with the Japanese culture, what would you call that stage? You
would,
personally, because it was your stage.
That was
I was
like,
seeing it from the outside.
That was my hardcore, like, otaku weeaboo stage.
Okay.
That went on for a little while, too.
I just want to let you guys know it was the singing of the Japanese songs and the whole bit.
But you want to know what's fucked up is I still do that shit till this day. But what I say is that I'm like you know how there's like covert narcissism? I'm like a covert weeaboo. Like, now that I'm older, you wouldn't really know that I'm a weeaboo unless you were like, oh, that's like a berserk tattoo. You got that on your body for the rest of your life. Or like you see my like Akira tattoo. Like, I'm like a covert weeaboo. But when I'm home alone, I'll be listening to the Naruto theme song still crying like I'm 13.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something crazy? I had like imaginary friends until I was probably like 12 years old. And they weren't like, it wasn't like Mr. Squiggle Bobs. It was like Itachi Uchiha from Naruto. And like he used to comfort me.
I believe it.
When I was like going through it.
I believe it.
It was like the Akatsuki.
And then there was the obsession with, what was the Renaissance video game?
Ooh, Assassin's Creed.
That was an obsession.
That was bad.
That?
Yeah, that was bad. That was good. It was such a good time.
I want to say Little Big Planet was also an obsession.
Yeah, and it was one that followed through for a very long time in my life.
Yeah, so, you know.
Heavenly Sword, do you remember? Does that one sound familiar to you?
A little bit.
I was really fixated on that one too.
I remember one time you were like, Dad gave me the money. This is a gift for a video game. And then we go to get the video game, and they're like, hey, Mom, you have to sign because this video game is not appropriate for children. And I was like, your dad said that you can have this video game? And you're like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm like, but no, they're saying that this is not appropriate.
And on top of that, before I exposed the name, it was a hand. And one of the fingers were shot off. It was Left 4 Dead. It was Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, and I was like, and you're like, but Dad said I could. And I'm like, okay, just ring me up then, I guess, because Dad already said she could. But yeah, the obsessions were worrisome only because, and I don't know if you'll agree, I feel that my personality is very balanced. Mm-hmm. And the obsessive nature to me was off balance.
Girl, you don't even know, but yes, I 1,000% agree. And honestly, like, can I be honest? Sometimes I miss it. Like, sometimes I miss, like, looking forward to shit. Like, I used to be like, oh my God, like, this episode of Naruto. And now I'm like, oh my God, bills to pay. Or, like, oh my God, jujitsu so that I don't have to be, like, fat anymore. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I miss getting home and, like, looking forward to, like, reading that Naruto book or playing that video game. It was, like, my hit of crack.
Yeah.
And I don't really have that, but that's okay. But I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and again, I had to write it out.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to be like, stop it.
Right.
Because
or I rebuke thee in the name of Jesus.
Yeah, it's where you found that was your peace and your comfort.
I agree.
So whether I liked it or I didn't like it, or agreed or disagreed, this was your world or the world you were creating for yourself or however. So I just had to observe from the background, hoping that the obsession didn't spiral out of control.
I think at the time there were just some changes going on and some things that I weren't used to. So that's where my, like, imaginary characters manifested. We had gone through, like, a pretty big move to a town, like, 30 minutes away from where we had been where I'd been for basically my whole life. And then something else really awesome that happened was that we welcomed a new baby.
Your little baby sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was my hardest pregnancy and hardest labor.
Mm-hmm.
I almost think it's just because I was a little older. And I wasn't even old. I'm pushing my 30s.
Yeah.
But to me, having birthed and being pregnant basically as a teenager, 18 and 19, to have you at 20, it was definitely more difficult on many levels.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And then she was born with a birth defect.
Mm-hmm.
So that was different.
Mm-hmm.
I had to worry about her in a different way.
Yeah.
From the moment she was born.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't breastfeed you or your sister.
You did. What did you have us on?
A formula.
Okay.
At the time, it's called Similac. I don't even know if that still exists.
That's why we gangsters, for real.
It was a good formula, though.
Yeah, it was. They weren't putting, like, I don't know.
No, I think it was one of the
like
better.
asbestos in there or whatever.
Or it wasn't like the cheaper one.
Okay, they weren't putting asbestos in there, were they?
Yeah, no. But yeah.
Okay. I remember that too, like, oh man. Poor Cheech and Marich. I dropped her on her head once. I was about 8, 9. I don't know, I was little. But, I remember the cleft palate. I didn't even understand it, but it was hard. There was one day where she came home in, like, arm braces, and I almost threw myself out of the window, because she was just so little and precious and cute, and just the fact that she was, like, restrained in that way.
Yeah, so that was when she had the surgery in her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to avoid her from trying to scratch or put her fingers in her mouth, she was put in these sort of splints.
I couldn't handle it.
And they kept her so that she wouldn't be able to.
This is why you have it.
Yeah.
I could not handle it, girl.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward a bit. You know, middle school, not too memorable. High school, not really anything of note. I will say that Mom has always been a big supporter of me and my endeavors. When I was in middle school was when I thought that I was going to be like a fashion designer, 1,000%, 1,000,000,000%. And to give Mom a lot of credit, like, I would take these ghetto paper towels that Grandma would have. They were like as hard as sheetrock, and I would fold them, and I would take, my grandma taught me how to sew, which is a sweet memory. And I would take the sewing supplies and make little dresses and stuff. And then if there was fabric, I would do it with that. I'd cut fabric out of dresses and this and that. And then when I think I was like 12, for a birthday, she bought me a sewing machine. So
I took you to a sewing class in New York.
and then she took me to a sewing class by this lady who,
I think it was in Soho.
she had a book and everything.
Chelsea. Yeah.
She's a cute little white girl, and yeah, we did that, and that was pretty good. What would you say the teenage years were like with me? Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Like I said, just going with your flow.
I had mental issues.
Don't we all?
Don't we all? As I'm getting older, I'm learning more and more that it manifests itself in different ways for different people.
Yeah.
I just never really hit it.
Yeah, like when you were singing, I was supportive of that. When you were drawing, I was supportive of that. You say you wanted to be a fashion designer, I was supportive of that. So really your childhood was just me going with your flow.
Right.
Then there was the skateboarding.
Yeah, which I'm still doing to this day.
Yeah, so...
She bought me my first longboard when I was 14 or 15.
I want to say 14.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would just go, and I believe that that's my personality and my character. I just go with people's flow. I don't try to push my opinions or my beliefs or what I think you should or shouldn't be doing.
Right.
The only thing that was of a thing where it was like, I'm not gonna go with your flow, is when you'd be like, I don't want to go to school today.
Yeah. Which
Can I just drop out like
funny
right now? And
So
every
funny.
day it was the same thing, and it was like, Nini, you have to go to school. So that was the only thing that I feel that you wanted that I was not supportive of.
Right.
That I was not gonna go with your flow on.
I was like, I'm making comics. How many 14 or 15-year-olds is making comics, girl?
And I was like, it doesn't even matter. Out. You still have to go to school.
Let me drop out.
Yeah, no.
I'm glad that I did continue on with school. You were always very aware of like mental health and very on top of that kind of thing. I always mention it whenever I talk about my journey and my history with mental health and mental health awareness. And so high school was a little rough. I have a lot of stories of mom just kind of being there for me. I remember there were a couple of visits to Newark, Beth Israel that were rough, and my right-hand man, my dog, was right there with me every single time. And
it's a crisis.
Mm-hmm. Before, like, I hadn't gotten admitted until I was a little bit older, but every time that I wasn't, Wendy girl was there with me. And so, do you have any, I guess, advice for any parents who have children who, for a little bit more reference before I ask that question, at a pretty decently young age, I want to say like 14, I was diagnosed with depression. Stage 3 depression was what they called it back in those days. And then a form of anxiety. And that was something that mom always stood on top of, We always tried to make sure that I was doing as much as we possibly could have before we had to resort to medication or anything serious like that. But is there anything that as a mom you would say to any parent who's, going through those kind of motions? Because again, I think that everybody's problems manifest themselves in different ways. The thing with me was I was always emotional. So I think in a lot of ways, and correct me if I'm wrong, there weren't too many surprises, if that makes sense. And when they were at the beginning, after that, it was like, okay, this is Nini, and these are kind of like the problems that we have to sort through. So I guess for any parents who, might be struggling or feel like my kid is a nutcase or something along those lines, would you have any advice to give?
Just to really watch and observe your children.
Which is important. Some parents don't do that.
Yeah, and to be aware, sometimes your kid doesn't express to you that something's going on, but you as a parent know that something's going on. So just that awareness. Mm-hmm. Because you may have been diagnosed as a teenager, but you started therapy, you were like 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. And it was a concern for me because of your emotions to how you handled certain life situations. Yeah. And it was a concern to me. Yeah. So. And
you used to say too that I would always take people's problems on as my own.
Yeah, you took the world on your shoulders. Yeah, so you have to be aware of your child, their behaviors, their personality type, and act accordingly. Mm-hmm. Me acting accordingly when you were 7 was putting you in therapy to help you. Because I'm your mom, I can only help you with so much. Mm-hmm. You might only listen to me with so much. Sometimes children listen to therapists on a different level. So to me as a parent,
sometimes kids just need to be listened to for one reason or another.
And that awareness for when you have the kid that doesn't want to talk to you. Mm-hmm. Or can't talk to you. Mm-hmm. It's not that they don't want to. Another, yeah, so that's my biggest advice. Be aware that if your kid is telling you everything's okay and I'm okay, and you have to be aware if things are or really aren't okay.
On a different level.
Yeah, and you have to act accordingly.
I think that's really good. Not that I have kids, but I think that's good, girl. So, let's move along a little bit. Let's move a little bit quickly. College, I went there. Dyed my hair blue.
That was fun. Those were fun times.
Yeah, you think so? Mm. I remember there was this one time, my mom, I didn't even know how this happened, but there was some fucking storm going on. And she calls me, and she's like, hey, baby, guess what? And I'm like, what? And she's like, there's a storm happening in 2 days. I will be on a flight. I'm on the way. I'm going to see you soon. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what the fuck? And she came into Florida and drove me and my roommate. We went cross country for 6 hours.
Across the state,
Across the state of Florida.
From Central Florida to Panama City, where the Panhandle is, because I
It was
was
beautiful.
nervous.
Yeah.
You know, for you Floridians out there, we're not used to that hurricane and all that storm stuff. So yeah, I was worried. In my mind, I pictured Elle being home with the roommate and the wind breaking the windows and all havoc is happening.
Let's run around like chickens without heads.
Yeah, so I went and I said, we're going to get out of the eye of the storm. And of course, all hotels were booked. There was nowhere to go. And the closest hotel was in Panama City. And everyone was driving in that direction. I don't know if you remember.
Yes.
So I want to say...
within every hotel, every place that we stopped, within the first 4 hours, everything was booked out.
Yeah.
Everything was booked out.
Yeah, so we wound up in a nice hotel in Panama City.
And it was for those first 4 hours on the drive over, it was from every, like, ghetto-ass hotel to, like, bougie hotel. Everything.
Everything was sold out.
Everything was booked out.
Yeah, so that was a cool experience. My worry was your first time as a Florida resident.
I think, what were we, like 2 months in? 2 or 3 months? We were 2 or 3 months in.
Yeah.
I was 2 or 3 months into...
hurricane season to college, yeah.
Yeah, I had just gotten there, bro.
It was a fun trip. It was an adventure.
It was, girl. I have a, that was also, like, such a traumatic time in my life, but that's a story for another day. I'll tell my YouTube channel, whatever, which is a fun story now that I'm older, now, like, with hindsight and shit. Okay, so, let's move along a little bit, right? I graduate. You come visit. That was fun. Now, I like to tell these stories. It's not funny, or I don't think you thought it was funny, but when she came back, or when it was my graduation weekend, there were some changes that she told me not to do. And so I had gotten a couple tattoos. And she wasn't into that. But...
because it was one of my rules.
What were the rules?
You had very few rules when you went to college, right? Instead of asking me, do I remember what the rules were? Do you remember what the rules were?
I think it was like, don't get piercings, don't get tattoos, don't get pregnant.
Don't go to jail.
Okay.
Those were my rules.
Did a couple of those. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think my reactions were as bad as they
were.
Would have been had I been my mother.
She let me off the fucking hook. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that we knew that it was... She literally she took a plane in with my little sister down to Florida, and it was my graduation weekend. Like, we had my graduation planned, but then on top of that, it was like all this other like shit that we were gonna do as like a last hurrah. My best friend and her boyfriend were coming down. So it was just like a whole bunch of shit. Like, what was she gonna do? Rip my head off so I did not, like, was walking around headless in Florida, you know? So she let me off the hook pretty easily. But I will just say, at the time, I went through my literal transition in Florida. Nothing physical, but I went in a girl and I basically came out a boy. You were always going with the flow.
But this is my
life.
This
is the thing. Like, you were always very much like that with me. I remember one time in high school, I said, Mom, I think I'm bisexual. And she said something along the lines of, I don't give a fuck. Have that conversation with your father.
Because for me, it's neither here nor there. Because that doesn't have to do
what that got to do with
me.
What that got to do with me. Okay, so we are about to kind of go a little bit full circle because I think we're kind of reaching like the end of our thing. We're a
therapy set. It's like a therapy session.
How almost. Do you feel?
I feel good.
You feel good, right?
Yeah.
It feels good, girl. We're going to wrap up a couple of loose ends, and then I do have a couple more questions I want to look over. But earlier we talked a little bit about your biological father, that guy, the being, the entity. We also mentioned a couple things like the way that technology has advanced and how crazy it's gotten. And I want you to touch on that a little bit while we wrap up this very interesting story that is something that we are now maneuvering in, you know, in our everyday current lives.
So, as I said before, the meeting with my biological father did not go as I wanted it to go.
It was a flop, you would say.
Yeah, and then he did come to me 2 weeks later and wanted a relationship with me.
And then did he, like, kind of hang out with the grandkids a little bit? Like, Nana or me? No.
No. You guys were so little.
We were tiny.
Yeah, you guys were 2 and 1.
Cute.
Not even your dad hung out with him or anybody. Okay. It was just me and
very
him.
Briefly though, right?
Yeah. Can I blow my nose real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I just want to say, I don't want to go into details, but we fell off.
Okay.
And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
So, going back to your sister's birth, the youngest, we had fallen off. Now, remember, there's like almost a 10-year difference between you and your little sister.
Yes.
So we had fallen off, and that was that. And then when I gave birth to your sister, the same thing happened to me again.
That's so weird. I mean, it makes sense, like, objectively, but it's just so crazy how it became very intense in those moments.
It didn't matter. And in those moments, it was like,
really
I don't understand. But in this case, it was different because I was like, well, I met this man already, so it doesn't really matter.
What could we even
but
do from
I
here?
need to meet my brothers, the 2 brothers that I have.
That you were aware of.
Yeah, because they're out here and they don't know about me. Mm-hmm. Or at least I didn't think they did. And I felt like I have a right to know them, and they have a right to know me. And if they decide they don't want to know me, that's one thing. Or if we get close and we don't click, that's one thing. But I just felt that I'm connected to people out here and don't know anything about them. So, basically, not to go really deep into it, I did reach out to my biological father, and I attempted
that 3rd time when you
and I attempted to say I want to meet the boys, and it didn't work out. Which I think their reaction. Okay, let's say this: me reaching out to them, it's like they pushed me further away. Because it was like me reaching out was not welcomed. And on my end, I pushed him more away. Because I felt like I'm just trying to know more of what's a part of me in this world.
My family, objectively.
And they didn't want. Also, I'd like to say that my whole life, everyone has loved me. Everyone that has met me has loved me. I've never met a person really that didn't like me. So to be rejected for the first time.
And by one of the people who's vitally supposed to love you and be there for you.
Yeah, and it wasn't the first time he's rejected me.
Of course.
In a way, you could say he's rejected me my whole life. Yeah, but
how many times are we going to go through this shit, motherfucker? Yeah. Like, damn. Sorry.
So I kind of just let it go and moved on with my life. And then it was the winter
COVID.
After COVID.
Yeah. We were in the middle of COVID, and the only reason I remember was because it was right before I started dating Voldemort, because I remember I had a huge crush on Voldemort. And I was going through that thing where I was spiraling and hanging out with crazy motherfuckers because I couldn't get to Voldemort. Yeah. And I remember in between one of those times, you were like, dude.
Yeah, so that Christmas, I received a gift from my brother.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and one of the gifts was a 20...
from brother on mom's side.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm an idiot. I did know that.
I received a 23andMe
Is that Dio Jose?
Yeah. Or just your uncle,
okay.
right? Well,
how many Jose's are in the world?
Okay.
It should be okay.
And I kind of felt at a crossroads.
Okay.
Like, damn, you know, I'm not your sister all the way, and you still got me a 23andMe kit.
Okay. I didn't even see it that way.
And then
I thought it was like the
like
government's gonna have my saliva now.
No.
The lizard people or whatever.
And then it was like, oh shit. This could potentially connect me to my brothers on the other side.
Uh-huh.
So I kind of didn't know what to do with myself.
Okay.
I sat with that 23andMe kit
For a while, right?
in my car. It was freezing. Shout out to 23andMe. Those kids survive all kinds of weather. And January passed. And February passed.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say, like, the last year of February or something, I said, if that's not permission, my brother gifting me a 23andMe, like, if that's not permission
to do this shit,
to see what that side is genetically, then I don't know what is.
What the fuck is, yeah.
And I said, fuck it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You could curse on
and
here,
I
it's okay.
spit into the tube, sent it out in the mail, downloaded the app, and waited. And I want to say, they say it takes like, I don't know if it said like 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Every day I was on that app.
Wow.
And then one day it was like, we received your kit.
Wow.
And another day it was like, we're processing your stuff.
Wow. They really like keep you in the loop.
And then one day it said my biological brother's first name and last name, which I knew what they were.
Okay.
And it said relation. It said half sibling, half brother. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, if that ain't a DNA test for you, I don't know what is. You
knew from the beginning.
I mean, we all knew. I mean, at the end of
like,
the day, if a man says one time, I need a DNA test, even if you know and you know that they know, it's like, really?
Okay.
And here's your DNA test.
Yeah.
Now what? Now what?
Where do we go from here?
So, yeah, long story short, I found him and met him, and it was all because of 23andMe.
And this was your half-brother?
Yes,
that
on that side.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I have relationships now with my nieces and my great-nephew.
And my cousins.
Yeah.
And back to what we were saying earlier about the freakish resemblance, like, her face is, like, all in my cousins, her nieces. There's just, like, so many weird-ass similarities. And then even the youngest cousin on that side, we took some selfies the other day, and everybody was like, oh, my goodness, like, the way that you guys just have, like, these similar features is pretty trippy, but I feel as though it's also been a really gnarly adventure and a nice little, like, rebirth to what may have been something a little tumultuous, you know? And if I could just say personally, like, all right, real quick. My grandpas and shit, for whatever reason, like, they were always just like my grandpas, like, great, like, this is a guy who gives me money, or, like, grandpa, like, your dad, like, he feeds me beer, he takes care of me, we eat chicken wings together, and, like, we can watch violent movies. And then my grandfather on my dad's side, he passed away when I was, like, around 11 or 12. But when you get on testosterone, they tell you to look at your paternal figures. So when I started transitioning, things kind of got really, like, trippy for me, to where I started feeling like grandpa on dad's side was, like, messing with me a little bit, not in, like, a bad way, but there were just certain things that I would, like, pick up on, or I would just think about him a lot more, like, fondly and whatever. And then there are also moments that I have where I think about my grandpa biological on my mom's side, where I'm like, there's so many traits or features that I don't know. And a joke that I make constantly is that if I start balding due to that guy, even though I never met him, me and him really gonna have problems if that gene kicks in and I start balding. But to say all of that, now there's kind of been this, like, beautiful rebirth in a relationship that I've been able to have with the cousins that we've met and with the nieces that you met through the 23andMe. It's really trippy.
Been nice.
So nice.
It's been beautiful.
It's a nice.
And I'm thankful.
Yeah. Life is crazy. These Caribbeans don't know how to fucking act, girl.
Amen to that.
But I think that life is beautiful and it's interesting. And again, I think that's one main reason why I wanted to sit down and have this conversation, which will be one of many that I have with my family. And so I'm just going to look so loud and obnoxious. I'm going to look one last time at the questions that I have. Okay, I have 2 final questions. All right. Just wrapping this up. What would you say is one of the greatest things? You're very young, you know. We have so much life to live. But what would you say thus far is one of the greatest things that life has given you? Whether that is a physical, a person, or just a lesson. Something that you've been able to learn over this time. What, if you possibly could tell me, what would you say that is? The greatest thing that life has given you? It's a hard one, I know.
It's a very hard one because there are so many things that life has granted me that are beautiful. Like my kids, my parents, but I would say the ability to see life for what it is and not just search for anything beyond what I'm living. Meaning, I think sometimes people are on the search for something while they're living life, and they should just be living life. And it should just be life for what it is. It's like, I'm not happy. I'm searching for happiness. I haven't found my happiness.
I'm broke. I'm searching for money. I need to be a billionaire.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's like life is up and life is down. There's no such thing as smooth sailing or a true 100%
happiness. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we're alive. And we have to go through those motions. And today I could be happy. And tomorrow I could be sad. And on Wednesday I could be angry. And on Friday I could be jumping for joy. This life is to be lived without searching for a feeling to exist on an everyday basis.
Right, or a feeling that's fleeting. Because all of our feelings objectively are fleeting through.
So I think for me, the biggest gift that life has granted me is knowing that and feeling that because it makes me feel whole and complete and it makes me feel satisfied. And to me, that is another level of living.
I think so.
That I just feel very sad for people who are always on the search for happiness. I want to do this and maybe I'll be happy. And if I do this, I'm going to be happy. And I just feel like
it's not necessarily true.
No.
I don't know where I heard it, but even my friends, you know, the friends who are in a band, one of their newest songs is about how you're never satisfied and you should just kind of live in what you have or be thankful for the things you have. And in my older age and as somebody with depression and anxiety, my biggest thing has been practicing gratitude and thankfulness for what I have in this moment. And I do have goals. I do have places that I want to be, but it's to never be like, oh, I'm so unhappy because I do, you know, you could be a millionaire. You could have this and that. You could have a house and a sculptor and a nanny, and you're still going to find something to be pissy about.
Amen. And that speaks to a positive mindset.
Which, to give credit, you know, for one reason or another, it's not always an easy thing to have, but it is true. Happiness, for a large extent, is a mindset.
1,000%.
I can say this as somebody who spent a large chunk of my life very, very sad.
Yeah. So I think it's that ability to live through life, not seeking anything more than what it is.
She's such a Gemini.
Can't help it.
She's such a Gemini. Okay, I think I had one final question. Okay. I think I slayed with these questions. I think I knew Wendy, girl. Last one, are you ready? If there's any advice that you could give to the younger version of yourself, what would it be? Girl, don't piss me off.
I'm going to put it into 3 top things.
Okay.
Focus on yourself. I say that because going out of teenagehood and into adulthood, your focus starts to change, right? You're no longer a child. I think I was too focused on other people and making other people happy. And I'm excluding my children. Mm-hmm. Because I feel that once you're a mom, your job is to make your children happy and to take care of them, and they go before you. Yeah, so I'm excluding them when I'm saying what I'm saying.
Even that, as growing up as a young woman, I do relate to that as well, putting everybody before you and focusing on others before yourself.
Yeah, so that would be the number one. Mm-hmm. Focus on you. Not in a relationship with a man, not your relationship with your besties to be liked or whatever. I think that would have been a big difference in a lot of things in my life. And I think that I would have been a little happier for it. Mm-hmm. Number 2 sort of goes hand in hand with number 1. Love yourself. Love yourself above all, because I think a lot of times in certain cultures especially, it's like self-sacrificing for other people or for other people's needs before yours. But if you love yourself, you won't even be able to do that.
I always say the strongest love is self-love, because when you learn to love yourself, you then learn like the true capability that like the true love that you can have for others. I'm not describing it in the best way now, but totally to love yourself and to be secure within yourself, you truly understand that everybody around you, they deserve the same love in the same capacity, and because of that, you can tread life a lot more lighter. Yeah. People who don't love themselves and are insecure will self-sabotage a lot and ruin things for themselves.
Yeah, and they say that. They say, how can I love you if I don't know how to love myself?
Which is... So, yeah. I get that. You can fuck shit up sometimes if you don't know what you deserve as a human.
Yeah. And the third thing, and they all fall in line with each other.
Love it.
Is to focus on you and what you want to accomplish. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you're so busy helping other people reach their goal and their accomplishment, and then what about you and yours? Mm-hmm. So I think they all have to deal with this self. Mm-hmm. Because I was a child raised in a certain culture, and everything was about other people. You could just say it.
Hispanic, being raised as a young Hispanic woman, maybe it's a little bit different in today's day and age. Mm-hmm. I honestly don't think so, because I do see a lot of young women my age who go through the same, like, ugly duckling. The brothers are not even ugly, but, like, the brothers are treated so well while the women are here for servitude, or you need to be a certain way and to take care of everybody else, even though the man of the house is machismo man of the house.
Yeah, and that's how you're glorified, taking care of other people.
Not fair.
And that's your biggest accomplishment, is what you do for other people. I get that, but then in the end, what does that leave you?
Yeah, there comes a time where you're going to be stuck with yourself. What work have you done on yourself?
Yeah, so that would be my advice.
Beautiful. I think that we slayed that, girl. Like, fist bump. Boop. I think we slayed the house queen. I don't really think I have anything else. I feel like there was something else I wanted to touch on a little bit. It's kind of irrelevant, I was going to say, you always wanted a son. At some point, they told you that Nana was going to be a boy. They fumbled the bag. Such a funny story. Maybe we'll save for another day, because you told me the full recently. Yeah. What does it feel? Do you feel any challenges or a sense of normalcy, now having a son in this new day and age? I know you said a lot, and I feel like we might name this episode Going with the Flow. I'm going to cry. Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
There was one time where I had identified as male for like 2 years, and then I dated a guy, and I thought that we were gonna get married. I thought that we were gonna have kids, and so like it kind of went through a little detransition moment. And I told my mom, I'm gonna start crying. I told my mom I want more dresses. You know, I threw out all my dresses, and she said, "You know, kid, sometimes in life, you are going to be in a place, and it's like you're in the ocean, and there are going to be waves coming from all different directions, and you just got to go with the flow." And at the time I was so scared because I was like, I built up my entire character to, you know, be this thing, which was a trans guy, which I am now, but, you know, at the time it was like, I felt a little bit of shame and fear as to, like, what would my mom say or what would everybody say that I went back on my word. And she was like, girl, just go with the fucking flow. And it was the most comforting and good thing that I had heard. And so, I don't know if I just answered your fucking question for you.
Yeah, you did answer my question. And if 10 years from now you say you want to be a girl again, I'm good with that. And then if 5 years after, like, it doesn't matter.
What if I said I wanted to be a turtle?
I'm with that too. We'll go get you a shell. It doesn't matter. I still love you the same, and don't love you any less, or don't see you as anything differently but the child that I bore.
Yeah. Your kid.
That's it.
Period, queen.
Period.
You guys, this has been the first episode of the LOL podcast with your host, El the Devil, and with our beautiful, lovely, amazing, stunning Gemini queen, epitome of Gemini guest, Miss Wendy. And I thank you for being the first person, you know. It's very special to me, and I thank you for utilizing that beautiful brain the way you always do, but it's just really special to see it out here on footage. And yeah.
Yay.
Bye guys, see you in the next one.